In this video, we are going to discuss about the on-premise data centers versus cloud computing. We will try to understand why the enterprises are moving towards cloud computing versus on-premise data centers, and what are the advantages of the cloud computing over the on-premise data centers. So the on-premise data centers, shortly abbreviated as on-prem, it refers to the private data centers that companies house in their own facilities and maintain themselves. Right? So you have your data center, and then you maintain it. You take complete control over your data center and you maintain it all for yourself. It is a software and technology that is located within the physical confines of an enterprise. It's basically the company's data center, as opposed to remotely running on the hosted servers on the cloud. So basically, everything you use is going to be confined within your physical data center environment, which is completely controlled and maintained by the enterprise. Right? If you want to take a quick example to relate it for yourself, right? Just imagine your own laptop to be your own on-prem data center, right? So you have complete control over the physical laptop, and then whatever you store in the laptop is going to be in your hard disk, and whatever the processing power you have is going to be based on your RAM and everything, and CPU and everything, right? So it's basically your laptop is your on-premise data center. So it comes with a predefined hard disk capacity, processing capacity, and all the configuration. You have paid for it, you have bought it, you have procured your laptop for your current usage depending on your current requirements, like what you are planning to do with your laptop. You went with a certain configuration and then you bought it for yourself, right? That's going to be your on-premise data center. We can compare the same analogy for a company who is trying to procure the storage capacity and compute capacity. Depending upon their current business needs, they will set up their own data center, right? Just to give you a brief idea, you can just imagine your laptop to be your on-premise data center. So what is cloud computing? So we this term has been pretty popular, cloud computing, and why the name cloud, right? Just a curious, you can get curious, like why it is called cloud computing. The word cloud is used as a metaphor for internet, based on the standardized use of cloud-like shape to denote the network. If you look at the olden flowchart diagrams, they started representing cloud like internet like a cloud symbol, right? The cloud symbol was used to represent the internet. As early as 1994, they started using, whenever they say like network, which is like not physical servers, they started putting cloud as a representation. So that's where it started. So whenever you use a network out of your bounds, and then we started calling that as cloud computing, right? So what is cloud computing? It's an on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage and computing power, without active management by the user, right? So it's basically on demand. You can get access to a huge storage and then computing power. You don't have to manage it. It is managed by some third-party providers, cloud vendors. They take care of maintaining the data centers. They take care of maintaining the resources, patching resources, upgrading resources, and everything. So you get on demand. You can just access the resources as you need. So data centers available to many users over the internet. So basically, you don't own the physical data center. Instead, you're just subscribing for a cloud vendor's service, and then you're accessing their data centers remotely over the internet connection, right? If you want to compare it with the previous example of the laptop, right? So if you have the capability to increase or decrease your laptop storage, you bought your laptop with certain configuration, let's say 10 years ago, right? I'm sure that you will not be able to use the same laptop for the current requirements. It's been 10 years. So 10 years ago, you would have bought it with a smaller hard disk capacity, with a smaller RAM capacity and CPU. It's been upgraded so much, right? Right now, the speed and the memory and everything with respect to the hardware cost reduction and everything, the laptop which you bought 10 years ago might not be useful for you at this point, right? Just imagine if you have the capability, like you bought the laptop, and then anytime if you want to increase your hard disk, or if you want to increase your RAM size, if you can automatically increase it over the internet, and you'll be able to upgrade it without changing your physical hardware, then how comfortable it will be, right? You get access to huge storage capacity, huge compute capacity, right? That's the same thing with the cloud computing. So compared to the company data center example, the company would have set up a data center depending on their current market demands, and then their current market kind of how much people are accessing their internet, for example. Depending on that, they would have gone with a certain capacity of the data center. So when the business grows and then it scales up, they may have to upgrade their data center every time. And suddenly, if the business is like not really doing well for a certain period of time, let's say there is a holiday season and you always get more customers into your website, and you have to support the extra traffic. If you are using a physical data center, you have to procure more storage capacity and compute capacity resources, and then you have to service those customers. When the holiday season is over, right, the traffic is not going to be the same as the holiday season. It's going to come down, right? So that's the case. Whatever the hardware you increase, it's not going to be used till the next holiday season, right? Basically, you are putting a lot of capital investment upfront to upgrade your data center, but still it's not utilized all the time. But in case if you're using a cloud computing environment, you can easily scale up and scale down depending on your business requirements. Similarly, if you're using a laptop, if you have the capability to automatically increase your storage and compute capacity over the internet, then you will never have a chance to change your laptop at all. You can always upgrade your services over the internet and you will be able to proceed further. The same advantage is what the companies are going to get from cloud computing versus an on-premise data center. Hope this example gives you a fair idea about why the companies want to move towards cloud computing, right? The basic difference between the scalability is the basic difference, like where you can support your business demands, you can scale up and scale down, and then you don't have to maintain or run patches or upgrade your softwares. The third party vendor takes care of it. There are a lot of advantages over the cloud computing with respect to your on-premise data center. Let's see more examples. So in comparison, on a high level, what are the difference between on-prem and cloud computing, right? In on-prem, storage and compute resources are procured, owned, and managed by the enterprise. Whereas in cloud computing, storage and compute resources are owned and managed by a third party, probably a cloud vendor like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. Depending on whatever the cloud vendor you choose, they are taking care of everything. So in on-premise, resources remain dedicated to the company. So it's completely the company is the only guy who is going to access the storage and compute resources. But in case of cloud computing, resources may be shared in a multi-tenant environment. Even though you call it as a multi-tenant environment, they have secure places to store your own data, but still there will be multiple tenants occupying the public cloud, right? So the resources may be shared across multiple tenants. In case of on-prem, enterprise is responsible for securing the resources, applying patches, and installing updates. So once you own the data center, the hardware, it's the enterprise responsibility to secure the resources, to make sure the data is stored in a secured manner. In case of any patches, you have to upgrade the patches, and then if you want to install any updates, you have to install the updates. Everything has to be completely maintained by the IT department of the enterprise to keep your data center up to date. Whereas in case of cloud computing, everything is kept up to date by a third party vendor. If you just subscribe to their service, the services are automatically kept up to date. You don't have to worry about maintaining your hardware or patches or software updates or anything. In case of on-premise data center, if you want to set up a data center for a company, right, it requires a high capital investment upfront because you have to invest your money to procure the resources to get the storage capacity. You have to form a physical data center where you host your servers and then provide electricity and air conditioning to the data center and everything. Then you have to completely own the complete data center. It's a high capital investment. But in case of cloud computing, if you decide to start something, you can start it tomorrow. You can just subscribe to their service and you get access to all the resources over the internet. And then you don't have to pay anything upfront, right? You just pay as you go. You just have to pay a low monthly payment depending on your usage, depending on your business needs. You can start with few dollars, and then depending on your business is scaling up, then automatically you can just increase your scalability with respect to your storage, and you can just pay as you go, right? You can start right away without any capital investment. And there is a scalability overhead in on-prem because if you expect a huge capacity or there is going to be an increase in your business or holiday season is approaching, right, you have to plan ahead. You have to procure the resources in ahead of time. You have to make sure they are hooked up into your servers and then they are up and running by the time you need them. But in case of cloud computing, with a few click of buttons, you will be able to scale up to a bigger machine with a huge capacity, and then again with a few click of buttons you can just scale down to a lower size machine, and then you can reduce your cost drastically depending on your business needs. And then in case of on-premise, because of your all ahead, you have to plan ahead and everything, there will be longer implementation times. In case of cloud computing, you can do quick deployments, right? So it's a huge advantage when you want to go towards cloud computing. But the main thing the companies might be worried about is most of the times they worry about the going into a multi-tenant environment. If it is a company who is actually very sensitive about their data and they have to have a complete control over the data, right? Those kind of companies will have to take some advantages of an on-premise data center. Apart from that, all the other companies who can take advantage of every other feature of the cloud computing are readily available to move towards cloud computing. That's where all the companies are trying to move towards cloud computing and take advantage of all these features. So with respect to security, right? So when you say security, if you are a small company who just own your own data center, right? The kind of security algorithms or the encryption algorithms or kind of physical security you can provide to your data center will be completely depending on your capability, right? You can just invest certain amount for security, right? But in case of cloud computing, you're just giving it, outsourcing it to the cloud vendors. They have access to huge revenue because multiple people are subscribing to their service, so they get access to a huge amount of revenue, and they have the capability to actually invest more on your security and algorithm related infrastructure, so it can still be more secure than how you can maintain in your own on-premise data center, right? If it's a huge company, they have a very sensitive confidential data, then they can afford their high level of security and encryption algorithms to secure their data. But for a startup company, for a small companies who are getting into the business, they cannot really invest so much on their security practices. But they can still subscribe to the cloud. By subscribing to the cloud vendors, they get access to high class security where they have like complex encryption algorithms, and then you get access to all the top notch software, latest upgrades and everything, right? So you get easily access to a high class infrastructure. So it's always comparing to this two pictures, you can imagine like if this is like an on-premise data center, that's what you can afford like a small company getting started. But if you subscribe to a cloud computing vendor, you get access to high level infrastructure. So that's a great advantage with respect to the cloud security. So, what are the advantages of cloud computing, right? So, less operational cost and no upfront capital investment. That's one of the biggest advantage. So, if you just decide today, you can start tomorrow. There is no huge upfront capital investment. You can subscribe, create your own account for your own company. You can get started. That's how easy it is right now. And then 24 cross 7 availability. So the data centers, if you maintain by your own, you have to make sure you have all the steps taken care in order to get your data available 24 cross 7, right? But in case of cloud computing, you have the guarantee that they guarantee you 24 cross 7 availability, because they actually replicate the data across multiple data centers. Even if one data center is like out of service, the other data center can still support you. So they make sure that they have the capability of supporting you 24 cross 7, and they guarantee that. And then flexible capacity, you can auto scale up or down based on the business demands. No fixed contract. It's a great advantage, especially the company is having like high amount of traffic in a certain seasons, right? They can easily scale up and scale down so that they can save a lot of money in operational costs. Less environmental impact or reduced carbon footprint. Obviously this is an environmental factor, more like a carpooling, because multiple resources are being shared by multiple companies. So it's like instead of having huge number of smaller data centers, it's like having a huge data centers where the cloud vendors are maintaining and all the small companies can subscribe to them, right? So improved security, like I said, the cloud vendors has access to a huge amount of revenue, so they can afford a high level of encryption and then maximum security they can provide for your data, rather than a small company having their own data center. They can only afford what they can do with respect to the security. So disaster recovery and loss prevention, like I said, the availability factor plays here also. So in case of any disaster happening in any of the data centers, they make sure they have multiple data centers safely placed with a fair distance from each other. And then in order, if in case any natural disaster or some any reason particular data center is not able to serve you, the other data center will be able to take care of your requests. So infinite scalability, there is no limit. You can just scale up like whatever the amount you want. There is no pre planning needed to scale. So it's like infinite scalability. increased collaboration and mobility across teams, right? Since it is going to be in the cloud, and then multiple teams can access the data from the same platform, and then people from across the globe can work together on the same team, right? Because they are working on a common cloud platform and they have access to the resources, and then there is no dependency on the physical data center connecting to the network and everything. So with the internet connection, everybody from any part of the world can just get into the cloud and start working collaboratively, right? That's a huge advantage. Competitive edge, obviously, if you are able to work on a top-notch, latest technology cloud computing platform, then you can compete with your competitors, right? They can just bring in new features pretty quick into the market, and then you can understand your customers sentiments better by deploying your data analytical platform on a cloud computing. You'll be able to perform better and outsmart your competitors, right? You get the competitive edge. Fresh software with top class services. So basically the software is always upgraded, latest patches are applied, and then you get access to latest technology at every time, just with your same subscription and the same monthly payment you make based on your usage. Your software is always updated, right? And then faster time to market, so you'll be able to implement your features quicker into the market. So for example, if you are using an on-premise data center, and if a development takes 3 to 6 months of time to bring in a feature into the market, probably by using the cloud computing environment, you'll be able to do it in few weeks, right? So the more faster you can introduce new features to your customers, your business is going to be like performing better than your competitors, right? That's a huge advantage of using a cloud computing architecture. So with this, like, hope you guys are able to get a fair idea about like why there is so much of buzz about cloud computing, and why lots and lots of companies are slowly moving towards cloud computing, right? Because the competitors, for their competitors are moving to cloud computing, the companies also want to try out cloud computing. And there are a few banks who are still skeptical about moving towards cloud. There are solutions being formed, and that end also there is something like hybrid cloud, where you can have your own data center where you can store your sensitive data, and you can push all the other non-sensitive data, analytical data into the cloud platform, and you can just connect between each other to a secure platform, and you can still take advantages of clouds. So the cloud computing vendors are coming up innovating every day to be able to onboard more and more customers to start using their platform, and then they're able to customize depending on the customer needs. If some customer is having like huge sensitive data, right, they are worried about storing the data in a public cloud, because they have to have complete access to their data, right? If they have their own data center, they know the data is stored in this particular hard disk. They can even go to the data center. They want to destroy the data, right? They can even go to the data center, take the physical hard disk and destroy it, so that they can be feeling safe. But in case of cloud computing, they are really not sure if the vendor is, if you delete the data, if it is getting deleted or not. That's the reason many banks are like, not really comfortable moving towards the cloud. To address these type of scenarios, there are like hybrid cloud concepts available, where you can still store all your sensitive data in your on-premise data center, and you can move all the rest of the data into the cloud, and you can interactively work between each other using the certain services the cloud computers and services are providing. So when these things get popular, when the competitors move into the cloud one by one, so everybody has to get on board. So that's the reason we are getting huge demand in the market for individuals with cloud computing skills, and then big data analytical skills on combination with cloud computing is getting a bit good demand in the market, right? So these are the advantages of cloud computing over on-prem. That's all I have in this video. Hope you guys are able to get a fair idea. Thank you.